Are there any edges that Indians have over the rest of the world, even Silicon Valley?
We don't throw dollars at the problem. We are definitely good at solving it in the most efficient way. So I don't see it as a competition. I see it as a co-option. Like, can we have two instead of one?
While growing up, what was the environment like?
Growing up was tough. I was not even a teen when I lost my dad. Now I was only 12, so you can imagine, right? And not too many choices. Mom set up like a home business of stitching clothes, and I tried to kind of do odd jobs, like repair someone's tape recorder. I would sell modems door to door, and then I happened to meet someone who would eventually sponsor my trip to the US. Learning by doing is one of my mantras. Never be afraid to ask people for help, no matter how dumb you look like. Just go and ask.
And you did another very unconventional thing. You decided to not take the green card. Everyone was shocked. Why?
To me, that was like, oh, there's so much that can be done in India. And if I go back, what can I do? So withdrew my green card application 2 weeks to go. We also realized that, that we have to launch in Mumbai. We went to the local MTNL office. They said, well, fill up the form, you'll get your internet. We were thinking a week and they were thinking 8 months.
What was the founding story?
Startups come to you. You can't go out and say, today I want to be an entrepreneur, I'll find something to do. We quit our jobs. And we said, this is the idea we're going to pursue. And then we realized, oh, there is no salary anymore. All the nice trappings are gone. So we would go to Sunil's home. He had a dining table. We would go crowd around that. On this idea, we started working, giving it legs. The product was so good that we signed up Zomato, Jio, Book My Show, Freecharge, and a few others in the first year of starting to sell the product.
Today we had Anand Jain on the podcast. Anand is the co-founder of CleverTap. CleverTap is the leading all-in-one customer engagement platform that helps brands unlock customer lifetime value. It is used by Domino's, Swiggy, Jio, and many more top Indian brands and global brands. During our conversation, we covered Anand's early life, his background, why did he move to the US, why did he come back, the real story behind CleverTap, how can Indian diasporas contribute to the Indian technology ecosystem, his advice to those who are thinking about moving back to India, and who is he outside of work. Now I bring you Anand. Anand, so good to have you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to it, excited about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm equally excited.
Anand, just before this, we had a conversation around your background, your journey so far. You've come a long, long way, my friend. There's a lot to cover here. But maybe a starting point can be what really shaped you the most while growing up? What was the environment like?
Yeah, so as far as I can remember, I was not even a teen when I lost my dad. Mm-hmm. And then between my mom and me, we had to scramble and make the ends meet. Now I was only 12, so you can imagine, right? And not too many choices and things to do. Mom set up like a home business of stitching clothes. And I tried to kind of do odd jobs, like repair someone's tape recorder or cordless phone or those kind of things, right? Mm-hmm. So the early environment for me was extremely tough. It was like a daily conquest on how do you get food on the table, how do you survive, because everyone around you seemed more happy. They were like, they had money, they had cars and their scooters and everything else. Like, well, you were kind of you didn't have any of that, and then you had to bridge the gap, right? It was not even that I was very good in academics, right? I would struggle a lot there, mm-hmm. And there was so much going on in my life that reading from a black and white textbook didn't seem very like. Yeah. I had no way on how to connect this action would lead to an outcome, mm-hmm. Right? So for me, the only way I kind of learned was by doing it, right? So all the stuff that we were talking about prior to this this thing is I started just doing things like I would open up tape recorders, I would open up mixers, I would open up irons and figure out what's going on inside, how does it work, and after you've done a few of those, you can then start repairing some of those things. So learning by doing is one of my mantras. Second is like one day at a time. And never die attitude, like never give up on this, always go full on. Either you do it or you don't do it. There's nothing in between.
Yeah.
That's how at least my early environment was. I've been extremely lucky, like, I grabbed every opportunity I got. But growing up was tough, very tough.
Yeah. But that made you who you are today, right? And you have a very, very unconventional story. I mean, usually, you'll go to IIT and then you'll move to US. Or, you're good at studies and you got into, let's say, Stanford, Harvard, or other top schools, but for that you need money. You had none of those. In fact, you were handpicked to move to US. You told me, but I want you to tell the audience, what was your reason of moving to the US?
Yeah, so you're limited by your imagination, right? So for me, US was never in the realm of possibility. I was very entrepreneurial from day one. Of course, when you're 12 and you don't have way to earn money, you become entrepreneurial, right? You start doing odd jobs, things here and there. Nothing that would kind of become your career path, but you just try out different things. One of the things that I did was I would sell modems door to door and sell internet connections and all that. And then I happened to meet someone who would eventually sponsor my trip to the US, right? My H-1B to the US. But it was not that quick. It was not that I met the person and they're like, hey, you're the one, chosen one to go to the US or come to the US. Right? I was a salesperson then, and I was selling modems door to door. I solved a huge problem that they were facing in not only their connectivity but their setup, right, with servers and things. So I helped solve that. He offered me a job of sorts, but I said, I don't switch jobs for money. I have an extremely great manager. My boss was phenomenal, and I don't leave people as long as they are okay with me and I'm okay with them. So we went on after that job, I became a programmer, and that's where I bumped into this particular person. He remembered me from back then. So from going modems to doing distributed computing, and that is when this person they had come to India in the year 1998 to set up an offshore unit with my company where I used to work, and I bumped into him at the cafeteria, and he said, hey, how come you're here, and I said, long story short, but I now program, and I have I'm working on some distributed stuff. And I showed him the demo, and he took me to the vice president of the office of my company, and he said that this person is going to lead the project. So that's how I became the lead of the project, which required a couple of trips to the US. And I went there to meet the rest of the team in the US. And by the time I completed my second trip, I had a job offer in hand from this particular person who said, we are winding down this operation. It's the age of the internet, and I'm going to start something. I have investors lined up. I have the idea. I have the early crew mostly decided, and you are going to be part of the early crew. So with that, I came back. But talking about the unconventional background, I was a commerce graduate. I studied commerce and economics and those kind of subjects, statistics. Not like a STEM degree. But because of the amount of money that they had raised, they were able to get a blanket labor department clearance for someone like me. But then I had to go scramble and find any educational institute, I'd never collected my certificate or completion of this thing. He said, send me anything that you got, so I only had mark sheets. But then I went to the university and collected my BCom certificate. I went to CDAC, where I collected my provisional diploma certificate. And things like that, so I submitted whatever I had, and then I got my H-1B. So that's how I said, it was outside the realm of my possibility, but you can call it luck, you can call it hard work, you can call it something that I should not have been working on. I was like a junior programmer in an extremely large company. I was not supposed to work on distributed computing. I was supposed to be like a Java programmer working on some a combination of a web page and an applet, which I had to connect the two together. But like I said, I've always been entrepreneurial, so I would complete that in the first half of the day. In the second half, I would I tried to kind of do more, and I tried experimenting with a bunch of things.
Yeah.
This was one of them, which impressed this person, and that was the sequence of events that led me to the US.
Yeah. So you were entrepreneurial, you were resourceful, and you were hardworking, and of course, a bit of luck. So, Anand, tell us a bit about your experience in the US. In hindsight, what were the skills or mindset you developed over there that helped you later on in building a large company like CleverTap?
So I landed up on an H1B working for one of the hottest startups of that generation.
Yeah.
Prior to that, like I was the entrepreneur, and I would hustle and I would work like 20 to 21 hours every day, right? This was like a different experience altogether because I was married when I went to the US, and in that startup, we not only used to work like all 5 days of the week, but also meetings would be set up during the weekends. And that to me was like, I did not expect that to happen in America. So to give you context, while I had grown up, visiting the flea market and getting my copy on old editions of Forbes and Fortune magazines and reading about entrepreneurs, but those were not Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. Those were mostly the people on the East Coast, like, real estate businesses and other large industries and conglomerates and all that, right? The Silicon Valley entrepreneurs were yet to be established. These were all a bunch of geeks, like, that the world had not heard about. So in the year 99, when I first time went to the US, looking at the work ethic, like, and then people obsessed about the mission of the company, obsessed about, like, delivering a great product was like something that I was not ready for. I was also thrown into the mix of some Stanford PhDs, some, computer science graduates, MIT, and so on and so forth, right? And like like the first thing was for me was like, man, these people know a lot more than what I would know. And there is no way I have to pretend to know things, but I don't really know it. So I hope I can cruise by. And I'll continue to work here as long as they don't kick me out. Like that was my floor.
Yeah.
One day I was struggling with the project and I saw a colleague sitting there, like white beard, like, a big guy. And I was struggling this for like 2 days. And, I said, what good is his experience if he can't teach me? What will happen? Like, let me go talk to this person. So I went up and I walked up to this person. I said, hey, David, remember the stand-up we had like 3 days ago? He was like, yeah. How's everything coming along? Like, I said, I have absolutely no idea what to do with the thing. I've been thinking about it for 2 days, but I don't know what to do. He laughed. Then he said, you must be kidding me. I said, no, I'm serious. Like, I've not written one line of code. Can you help me? Like, just show me the path and I'll walk the rest. He said, okay, let me show you. Brings out a piece of paper and he starts writing on that thing, like a flow chart of sorts. This is how you need to approach the problem. I said, I got it. And then I think by lunch, I had delivered what was expected to be done in like 3 days. That gave me confidence that, two things I learned. One is that never be afraid to ask people for help, no matter how dumb you look like, just go and ask. And the second thing is people are helpful, right? They will tell you, like, so when you ask a question, you're always afraid and all that. But if they give you the direction, run on that direction, like, good things will come to you. Because that opened up, like, now I became like a hot favorite. People would give me work.
Yeah.
And I would ask, like, I have no idea how to do this. Can someone tell me? And a little bit of, and then of course I read a lot in the US. Some of these books, computer science books or programming books were not available in India back then. So I read voraciously. I learned everything from compilers to, everything, man. Virtual reality, markup language, VRML to HTML to everything in between, right? So I grew a lot both from my learning, from my work ethic, and also, like, US is like, it was like a new country for me.
Yeah.
So adjusting to that country, understanding the various subcultures, the subtleties, and a lot of etiquette, a lot of how do you deal with people, how do you motivate them. I was in a startup environment. So how do you get your early crew together to focus on the mission? How do you deliver on that? And how do you become like a they call it the hockey stick, like, growth. How do you even think about that?
Yeah.
Don't be happy with 10, 15% of growth. Like, how do you think dramatically, big outcomes? I learned a lot in the US.
Yeah. And you did another very unconventional thing. You were about to get your green card in about 2 weeks. And, for those who understand that, green card is something that everyone seeks out. In fact, now the wait for green card is almost 40, 50 years.
Exactly.
You decided to not take the green card. Everyone was shocked. You decided to move back to India. Why? And also tell us, your journey post moving back. We can start from birth.
Why did I move back? $1 million question. Many people have asked me, like, hey, who gives? Especially in the year 2006. India still is in a better place now.
Way better.
Yeah. 17, 18 years later, right? But back in the days, America was the coveted dream for many people. And while I did not covet going to the US, etc., but once I landed there, like, hey, everything is great. People show up on time. It's very well organized and all that, right? Going from that to like our disorganized chaos in India, was a hard. I would not say it was a hard decision. It was a hard thing to adjust to when you come back. Well, I'll tell you what made me think about this. When you are in the US, you read and I read a lot, man. Trust me, all my schooling I did not read as much as I would probably read in a week. I'd go through books, I'd go through articles. I would. There were no podcasts back then, so that's a new thing. But I would read everything. I would listen to NPR, and then you start forming an opinion about West and East. And you also realize that East is growing at a faster clip, and it's a lot more exciting than the more established West. Right now, of course, West is an innovation hub. A lot of technologies were invented there. A lot of new things came out of collaboration between people from different nationalities. So it's a melting pot of sorts, especially Silicon Valley. But you also realize that we are so much behind in the East, and especially India, which means you can look at the glass two ways. Now they say three ways, but anyway, I'll stick to two ways, like half full or half empty. To me, that was like, oh, there's so much that can be done in India. And if I go back, what can I do, right? Can I start a startup? Can I apply all the things that I learned in the US, the work ethic, and motivating your team to achieve a mission and all that. So for me, it was like, let's go back. And I was also at a critical juncture. So my elder one was born in the US. She was 1 year old, and we had to decide, like, when we say back, what does it mean? Most of the times when the kids grow up and you are in India, when the parents say let's go back, it means let's go back to India. When the kid says let's go back, for the kid it means the US. So I didn't want to have two definitions of that. Like, I wanted to make sure kids born in the US, like, 1 year, okay, like, let's go back to India. Things don't work out, we always can come back to the US, but what if it works out? So withdrew my green card application, 2 weeks to go. I was in Seattle back then. Packed all the boxes. It was a very emotional moment for me. You make some very good friends. You get acclimatized to the US and all that. It was hard emotionally as well, as from all aspects, right? Just packing up your boxes, booking the container. Like, I booked half a container to come back, and then I sent my wife and the kid, like a couple months prior, before I moved back. But before I moved back, I moved back in 2006. As soon as I moved back, or rather just before I moved back, my Motorola boss, he called me and he says, you know what, the project that you're leading is, we are going to deploy this in the largest telecom player in the world, operator in the world, China Mobile. And don't you want to see this complete? Don't you want to so I said, well, Mike, I'm moving back, man. I don't know.
I've decided.
Yeah. I mean, all these temptations, 1 more week, 1 more month, 6 more months. Oh, let me have this and then I'll do that. He says, your choice. And I said, okay, well, let's do one thing. I'll go back to India. I'll still be on the Motorola payroll, but I will work on the intersection of Beijing and India time. Is that okay? He says, whatever, man. It's your project. You have to see it through. So I moved back to Ahmedabad, and I had a dial-up connection back then. On the dial-up, I tried to make this work. It did not work. So I ended up spending 6 months in China. But during the office lunch hours and the evening hours, I started writing code. So I'd taken two laptops, one the office laptop, one my personal laptop. I started writing code for this restaurant discovery platform that I was about to launch here, right? So I did that. Like, adjusting in India was very hard. From getting an internet connection to pigeons to everyone gets your goat, So I
8 months to get an internet connection.
8 months. Can you believe it? In a city like Bombay. So we also realized that that we have to launch in Mumbai because this was the most cosmopolitan city back then. We said that there are these young professionals who want to go eat out, discover nightlife, try out different cuisines. Because this is their first exposure. They have now a disposable income, so they're going to do that. There needs to be like a discovery platform, where other people who've gone there would write a review, and then you can read the review and decide to go there. Take your parents. Is it a vegetarian only place, and so on and so forth, right? Now, for that you need an internet, right? Hosting we took care of, but you need an internet. So when we went to the local MTNL office, they said, well, fill up the form and you'll get your internet. We assumed it's going to be within that week. We did not realize the time frame mismatch. We were thinking a week and they were thinking 8 months. So yeah, when I would go to the local mall and steal their internet connection. Since I'm a hacker of sorts, I would go get their. And no one had these kind of phones that would get internet and all that, right? So I said 90% quality of service to myself and 10% for the rest of the mall. So somehow we could get we passed our time through that. Then we went and we would go there every week and say, come on, you have to. We had no other connections, right? But we would plead to their emotion. And after I think 2 months of wait, they gave us the internet connection. Then came the challenge of finding talented employees in the Silicon Valley. Like I said, I was surrounded by computer science graduates, extremely high performers and all that. In India, when people would come into interview. So we had this situation where, and this is best described in Hindi, Piche makan aage dukan. So we were in a 1-bedroom apartment. Me and my co-founder sharing the bed, hey, candidates would walk in and they would look around and they would think that this is a hiring office for a opportunity somewhere, in Dubai or some other place, right? I have said, no, we are running a product company. We'll come and work out of here. Even if you manage to convince the candidate, hey, you'll work here, and we ask intelligent questions in the interview, the person aced the interview, they would go back home. And in the evening, they would call and say, my dad doesn't agree. I don't think so. I'm going to, he doesn't understand what a startup is. And why should I work? So from the internet connection to hiring people to even convincing the early stage VCs, venture capitalists back then, that this idea has legs. We got walked out of a lot of meetings where people said, we don't believe in consumer startup in India. I said, well, we have 1 billion plus people. Where else are we going to do a consumer startup? People eat minimum 2 times a day. They are going to need a discovery platform. So we never got funded. So my landing was not smooth, extremely bumpy. When I came back, no internet, no employees. A couple of folks we were able to convince to join us. No VC willing to back us. No data to start our business with. So, hey, we landed here and we were building this restaurant discovery platform. In the US, we would have gone to an intermediary and bought or entered the data from them and built the application layer on top of that. Here we realize there is no such thing. I mean, you have yellow pages, which would not carry restaurant data. There were no online portals and there was nothing offline. There was a Times food guide where one person decided which is the best Asian place in Mumbai and which is the best Italian food in Delhi. We said that's not how we want to democratize this, right? We want everyone to kind of write a review and then top rated places and whatnot, right? There was no data. So I got the good old physical, imagine a life without Google Maps. I got a physical, the Aisha used to print maps for the truck drivers. Went to the local bookstore, got a map, divided the city into grids. That was the easy part. Now I had to find someone to go collect the menus. And if you go back in time, in the year 2006, restaurants had no idea why someone would collect the menu. Collecting the menu is good. Like, most of the people who would go dine out at a restaurant would say, hey, can I get a menu so I can order in, like, next time. Why would someone just walk into the place and start taking pictures? So my photographer got beaten up a few times until we figured out how to dodge the, that process. But yeah, that was data collection.
Yeah.
And I'm not even getting started on the technology and the hosting and all of that, right? But yeah, that's what my challenges are as I settled back into India. And my family was in Ahmedabad and I was here, and I would take a train every weekend. I couldn't afford the plane, so I could take a bus or a train on the weekends to go to Ahmedabad.
And that was, you started this before Zomato, right?
I started this a couple of years before Zomato.
Yeah, Zomato. And then I think you met your co-founders and you got acquired by Network 18. That's where you met your co-founders. And
I met my Burke co-founder in the US. So he was also in the Bay Area. He had just completed his graduation. So a dear family friend's son. And we decided to move back. So he was born in the US. He had no idea why are we doing this to ourselves. Neither did I. But we moved back and we started this. Like, why are we slumming it out here? We did that, and throughout the journey, he was with me. And I think after a while, after 3 years of trying everything, Infomedia 18, we got a chance to talk to them. Like, they were like publishing yellow pages, dying business and all that. And they said, well, we need to put all of this online, but a printing press has absolutely zero people who are thinking online and digital and social and all that, right? So it's called solo mo, like, social, local and mobile, a combination of all three. How do you kind of put it together? So they started talking to us, and as the talks progressed, they thought they were a listed company, a super brand of India, one of the most prestigious business houses. They thought it makes sense to acquire us. Not that we were getting any funding from anyone. So we also thought this is a good home for us, and that's where that's how I and my co-founder ended up in Network 18. He left back to go to the US because corporate job is not what you're looking for. Like, so he had come to India to do a startup. We did it. We exited, so to say. He went back. I met the other two founders of CleverTap in Network 18.
Got it. And what are the names?
So Sunil and Suresh.
Got it. So you met them at CleverTap.
Correct.
What was the founding story? Were you like, okay, so you met them, you knew that you were going to do CleverTap, or you looked at few ideas, you were on the drawing board figuring it out, ab kya karna hai, next kya karna hai, wo batao. And also in simple language, I want to, okay, in simple language, you can tell us what CleverTap does, but usse pehle, we want to understand what was the first idea, the evolution, and then ab.
Great question. Like, so what was that itch? Why did you start, right? So we were not really looking to do any startup. Like, startups come to you. You can't go out and say, today I want to be an entrepreneur, I'll find something to do. Like, because most likely it's going to be a mismatch, not going to work out. It came to us, and I'll tell you how it came to us. So we were the engineers, the three of us. So I was running all the digital properties of Network 18, which is Money Control, First Post, the cricket website, the news, IBN 7 portals, and things like that, right? And we had a ad network, third-party ad network that was powering the sites. And one day I was talking to my co-founder, I was talking to Sunil, and I said, wouldn't it be awesome if we could give them, if they could target better? Like, we are showing tractor ads to people in Mumbai, like living in Bandra, right? I know they might need it, but hey, I don't think so. They're gonna, it's a mismatch, right? And they do not know this because they don't get the location of the person, or they don't have other things like, what if we could combine all this data from one publisher, which is Network 18, and do better targeting? So we told this to the ad network guy, and the ad network guy said, no, we can't. Like, this is, I spoke to the founder, we can't change it. And that's where the third founder comes in, Suresh. Suresh was my engineering manager, so he was one of the four that I had reporting to me. Also the smartest, so I told Suresh, hey, you know what, this is the problem we're looking at. He's like, yeah, I'll write it. We're like, okay, how much time? He's like, maybe a couple of weeks. So in a couple of weeks, while doing his day job, he also wrote the ad server, which could take inputs from whatever input we had, whatever data we had on the user, feed it into this ad network, which was our own ad network, not a third party.
Yeah.
So that you can target the users better, right? You can also do a bit of alerts and all that, right? It got deployed. It worked at, that was, by the way, the largest property back then, moneycontrol.com. It worked at that scale. So we were enthused about it. Problem solved, game over. Then I think a few days later, it occurred to me, why can't we actually use it to communicate with the user? So showing ads is one thing, but can't we use it to personalize every piece of communication? Like if we go to an e-commerce site, why are they showing me things that they want to sell? Why don't they show me things that I want to buy? It should be simple, right? It happens every day. Let's say you go to a salon, like I go to a salon. I went there yesterday.
Looking sharp.
Thank you. I went to a salon yesterday, and this guy, he knows this. We don't speak a word, so I go sit down, puts the thing around my neck, starts cutting my hair, right? He's never once asked me, hey, can I spike your hair blue, or can I give you like a crew cut or some other variation? Because right at the beginning, it was established, I don't like any of that. The smallest possible hair I can have, approved by my family, is good enough. Because it'll grow back, hopefully. He knows me intimately. Every time I go there, I don't have to go tell him the whole story, right? It's like we met, earlier today. Now next time we meet, there will be some context. You will know a few things about me. You will remember, few. Some you'll forget, and it's like vice versa, right? Online, this never happens. They pretend as if they've never seen you, and you start all over. So if you are looking for a pair of denim for yourself, you will start with this is the size is medium, and I need this color, and I from these brands and this price point, and blah blah blah, right? And you're like, dude, I just told it to you last week when I came browsing for denim. Why can't you remember that? So the whole personalization was missing. I think that's where we said we should personalize this. We should so we went and proposed this to the management. We went there, we said, okay guys, we have an idea, we need to build this data technology that will power all of this, all across different properties, but we will personalize everything that we show. So the Bandra person doesn't see the tractor ad. They might learn about the hottest new restaurant that had opened up, or maybe an upcoming play in the neighborhood and things like that, right? They sat on the idea for 2 months. Management, large company, wheels move very slow. They were no takers for the idea. And I think the three of us felt so strongly about this that all, like they say, fools rush where angels fear to tread. We quit our jobs and we said, this is the idea we're going to pursue. So one fine day in 2013, we submitted our papers to each other. So Sunil was my boss, and I was Suresh's boss. So Suresh submitted, which I gladly accepted. I submitted to Sunil, and Sunil gladly accepted. And Sunil now had to go talk to management. His problem, not ours. He just said, I'm leaving. The other two guys will take care of everything.
Interesting thread.
Yes. So we left. And then we realized, oh, there is no salary anymore. All the nice trappings are gone. Now we don't have, 9 o'clock, we don't have a place to go. So we would go to Sunil's home. He had a dining table, a nice large dining table. We would go crowd around that. And on this idea, we started working, giving it legs, brainstorming, figuring out okay, so we have all this data in one place. What are we going to do with it? And the idea started germinating, right? That, hey, if you have, and again, this is for a customer, right? Think of a business, a retailer, or a gaming app, or a food delivery app. If they have all your past habits, everything that you've ordered, who you are, whether you eat vegetarian, non-vegetarian, what kind of cuisines you like, what time of the day you eat, and so on and so forth, they can actually show you better recommendations, right? I'm a vegetarian, so show me vegetarian options, right? Any cuisine is okay. On the basis of that, you can do insights to the business, right? Once they know what's going on in that, hey, these are my consumers, this is what they order, these are the, if you look at different neighborhoods, different communities, they will have lunch at different times of the day. right? Some people have the lunch at 12, some are like 3:30 p.m. and so on and so forth, right? Different kinds of meals, like, some have large meals, some have like small salad and those kind of things, right? So from insights, you can then segment users, you can divide them into micro groups of their behaviors, and then you can run all sorts of messaging, personalization to them. You can give them something that they came looking for, right? Or if they did not come to you looking for something, you can actually deliver a message to them, or you can personalize the homepage. So I think that was the idea broadly, like, when we jumped into this, we had absolutely no idea who our competitors are going to be, what is the TAM, what is the, how much time will we take to build it, and so on and so forth. We were just too passionate about the idea, and we quit our jobs. And like you've known, before this conversation, I'm a bit of a dumb guy to do things without thinking much. I was the one that instigated the other two to ride along and start CleverTap.
Yeah, we were like, aajo, and then
Exactly. No, I told Sunil, I actually went, I'll tell you the story, like, so I took a piece of paper in my pocket, like a blank piece of paper, because Sunil was my boss. I went to him and I said, Sunil, I put my papers, like, in a very Bollywood dramatic style. Then he looked at me and he, obviously started with an expletive, like, he's like, kya kar rahe hai? I said, I'm quitting. I get that part, but what are you going to, like, you have a job lined up? No, I said, I'm going to open a sari shop in Dadar. And Sunil knows all my stories. So he's like, he was not surprised by the fact that I'm going to do that. Open a sari shop.
Yeah.
But the way I put my papers, because we were like close.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, Sunil, here's my recommendation. You join me as well. He's like, dude, what? I said, what if it works?
Yeah. That's how that happened.
And then of course, like, I said, this place sucks, man. Like, there's just too much. It moves too slow, man. I need action. I need like to do things.
And you told me, while we were having the conversation, like, I can't sit idle. I just cannot,
right? I can take a break. I can take a vacation, like, I hike and all that, right?
Yeah.
But I can't be passive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't let life come at me. Like, I have to go do things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, we can do something big. And we should take Suresh along as well. I think the three of us get along very well. That's co-founder chemistry.
Yeah.
Now there's fancy words for that. But like back in the days, it was like, hey, we get along well.
Yeah.
We collectively solve many problems that get thrown at us. And we are a good team. Like, just think of that. So that's how we left our jobs and we started CleverTap.
Yeah. I'm just thinking the scenario. You convinced... sorry, I'm mixing
Sunil.
the names.
Sunil.
And Suresh was like thinking कि नहीं convince कर पाएगा. And
Suresh did not know.
And then जैसे ही convince हुआ, and then you called his name. I'm just thinking. Suresh like मेरे को नहीं पता लग रहा. I can't hear.
I'll tell you what happened. Sunil finally convinced or not. He said, I have to ask the higher authority in our life. I said, of course, I have to ask Lata as well, but go for it. I said, let me go talk to Suresh.
Yeah.
I was walking towards Suresh and Suresh was walking towards me. And he's like, Anand, I want to talk to you. I said, no, I want to talk to you first. And Suresh is too polite and he's such a nice guy. Like, it's like, okay, you go first. I said, Sunil and I have decided to do a startup. You heard about the Bill Gates' daughter, I'm going to marry it and the bank manager is not going to give me a loan. I kind of did that. Like, And then Sunil and I, we have decided to start up together and, we both like you to join us as a co-founder.
Yeah.
He's like, I wanted to tell you that I am moving on and I am going to New York. I found a job, me and my wife both. We were doing an MBA during the weekends and the professor was from Goldman and he gave me a job. I said, okay, but what if this works? Maybe like, you are a smart guy, man. You went to IIT, I did not, right?
Yeah.
So you always can go back and become some vice president of Chit Chat or some other big guy in New York. You can do quant and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Think of me. I'm taking the most risk here. Like, I have nothing going on for me.
Yeah.
This is the biggest thing I can dream of.
Yeah.
So he said, let me think about this. I think by evening, both of them had called up their wives, respective, like better halves, thought about this. I don't think so. They thought about it too much. I was like, we have to decide today and we have to do it. I think we decided. Then we did the resignation bit and then we started CleverTap.
So I usually eat dinner around 7, 7:30, max 8. And usually, in fact, lagbhag sari notifications on my phone I've turned off. Only one notification I've turned on is Zomato, because I need to see where the driver is and all that. So Zomato sends me, typically it sends me a notification around 6ish or 6:30, feeling hungry.
Yes, yes.
A day before, a few days back, they sent me a notification around some healthy food, because that's the data that they have.
Correct.
And that's powered by CleverTap.
There's a lot of data science behind the scenes to get you that one message.
Yeah.
Who to send, when to send, what to send, where to send, and how many times to send or not to send. So there's behind the scenes. But carry on. Sorry.
So today, fast forward to today, and uske beech mein there will be inflection point we want to talk about. One, what was that inflection point for you guys at CleverTap that really changed the trajectory of the company and also your mindset, your confidence level? And then post that, where are we today? I know that you have about 600 to 700 employees. Half of them are here. Half of them are actually located across the world, not just US, Brazil, Colombia, and many other countries.
Correct.
Just talk about where are we today and what's next.
Yeah, I'll talk about like the data science, like what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of heavy lifting on the data side, on like delivering this one notification, and then we dismiss it sometimes. Sometimes like, how did they know I was thinking about this? But that's data science. No one's spying on you.
It actually delights.
Yes,
and when I see this message, I'm like, wow, this is
See, think about this, like, let's say you are from a tier 3 town and you're thinking, you're in two minds of applying for a loan for your business, and you go to the bank's website or your app, and then you're like, okay, last step, maybe should I do it, should I not do it? And that is when you receive a personalized piece of communication which says, hey, talk to us, and all your doubts, etc., will be taken care of. So it's not just the engagement journeys, but also the customer onboarding journeys, right? Or a win-back campaign, because we have so many apps on the phone, we sometimes forget, hey, I downloaded that game, or meditation app, like to give that Pankaj example, like meditation app, and you have to send a reminder, hey, it's it's 5 p.m. or whatever, 9 p.m. and don't forget to meditate before you hit the bed. So these things become habit forming for the consumer, right? In terms of, sorry, I forgot the question.
First was the inflection point.
Inflection point, yes. So, in the early years, actually, of CleverTap, when we started in 2013, we very quickly realized that there is no database that is real time. I mean, everything can be real time if you throw enough money at it. But to make it cost effective, to give something that would scale to Asia scale or India scale, right? Hundreds of millions of subscribers, consumers using an app, sometimes at the same time. Think of a cricket match where you're ordering food, you're streaming the app, you're also doing the fantasy sports. There's a lot of things that happen in that ecosystem, right? Around the same time, 2-3 hours of the match. How do you build something, right? So very quickly we realized we need to build this technology. We need to invent this. So the three of us got busy building this core technology. It took us 30 months, first 30 months of our startup life, we were kind of in stealth and we were building this tech, right? I think there are few inflection points, and these are kind of, these are step ladder, if I can call it that, like, we changed the trajectory of the company, right? Number one was the decision to write this on our own. Like, this has become like a big moat for us, technology moat. We call this removing or adding the tech to the MarTech, right? Second thing was that we said that, from the data you can do insights, you can run recommendation, you can do predictions, you can personalize all messaging, you can personalize the home page and every other page of the app, right? The decision to go extremely broad. Most of the companies in our space either solve one specific problem. They'll solve the email problem, or they'll solve the SMS, or I'm going to do the A/B testing, or I'm going to only do analytics. We said we'll do them all, right? So that was the second big decision that we took. The third decision for us was, and this is even before we launched. So we are still in stealth. We are still formulating the product in our head. Third big decision was the common wisdom in 2013, 14, 15 was you build in the east in India and you sell to the west. And we said, यार ये logic समझ में नहीं आया कि why would you go halfway across the world to sell to someone? Indian startups must be buying Indian banks and retailers and startups and all these people, Toyotas and whatever, in India. They must be buying from someone. Are you saying they buy from halfway across the world? Like we should be selling domestically. Why would we not do that? So, see, first principles is like a big value in our company. A lot of times you'll hear me across the floor saying first principles thinking, right? And we take it to heart. So we said first principles thinking tells us that we should sell in India. It's like learning to drive in India. If you've driven in India, you can drive in any part of the world. So let's start selling here. The product was so good that we signed up Zomato, Jio, Book My Show, Freecharge, and a few others in the first year of starting to sell the product. Now, not bad for founders who come from engineering backgrounds and who have never sold a day or has never worked in a B2B SaaS kind of company, right? Like I worked in Motorola and AT&T Wireless, hardcore technology companies. In Network 18, I was in the media company, geeking around with software and scalable architectures and those kind of things. But I think for us, that was like a big confidence booster that, hey, we can actually sell to these large companies. And it is not that we hired a professional salesperson to go sell, knock on these doors. We were 15 people. Every single person was an engineer, including the designer, everyone. And we just divvied up the roles, and most of these guys came inbound, looking for the product. They had heard something awesome being built, and then they would, go try to figure out an email address. We did not have landing pages and like a full proper B2B SaaS motion. We did not have any of that. We learned it on the job. But they found our email addresses. We would reach out, and we did not have a deck. We would just show the product, hey, this is what we're building. Does it work for you? They're like, yeah, it works for us. Okay, let's do a pilot of sorts, right? And if you think about the names that I mentioned, they're actually all in very, very different businesses. One is a telecom operator. The other one is a food delivery business. Third one is a movie ticketing or event ticketing business. The fourth one is in the fintech space. We also realized that, hey, this product works for a very wide variety of use cases or solutions or industries, right? And we may have hit upon gold. So that was one of the big inflection points for us. And then, of course, it's history after that. We tripled our revenue and then tripled it again. Proper ARR, software revenue, not services in the next 2 years.
I think just had two questions that came to mind. So talking about today, Anand, I think we are at about, correct me if I'm wrong, around 100 mil ARR.
A little shy of 100.
A little shy of 100. Selling, of course, in India and globally. What's next for you in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, in terms of success, what is success? Maybe that's the the underlying question, right? I think we have seen tremendous success, right? It was not like a straight line, like in a lot of cases in the world, as individuals and companies, right? It's never like, oh, we started here and then we submitted, right? For us, there were a lot of hard learnings on the job. How do we expand into different geographies? How do we set up a team there? Do we service them from India? Do we do partnerships? What is the right kind of customer to sell? How do we service them? How do we deal with product requests coming left, right, and center from across the globe, right? Someone wants something in Vietnamese, the other person wants in Arabic, and the third guy wants like a Portuguese translation of the same thing, right? And so on and so forth, right? But I think we've got that under control now, right? We're fairly successful by any measure. But is this the global maxima? No, this is a local maxima, right? It makes us happy to be hey, you know what, we are close to $100 million. Hopefully by end of this year we will cross that mark. Have we achieved everything that we want to achieve? No, not by a far shot. There are companies much further ahead. The analogy that we were discussing, like, it is not like this, like, it's like further ahead.
Yeah.
So if you look in the rear view mirror, there will always be people behind you. And you look in the windshield, there will always be people ahead of you, right? So same is true for companies.
Yeah.
How do you grow faster? How do you get your product out to more customers, right? We really believe that we have a 10x solution. A product like us doesn't exist in the market. How do we make sure that existing customers are happy? How do we find more customers in the market, right? So, and how do we solve more and more needs in an enterprise? So, we personalize every communication. We do product experiences. That means you can go change the layout of an app depending upon who the person is, where they're from, are they gold customer or platinum, and so on and so forth, right? So, we solve all of those things. What about other use cases? Can I deliver AI capabilities to my customers so that they can speeden up? They can understand the data a lot better. They can analyze, interpret, and act on it a lot faster, right? So there are multiple things I said, right? One is there is the product dimensionality, right? Can we do more on the product side? Second is, can we do more on the business side? And third is, like, can we make all of our stakeholders happy? Who are the stakeholders? Apart from customers who've trusted us for a long time, like, they're stakeholders like employees and investors, right? Can we provide them, like, so the economic investors, like, that we've taken money from, can we go give them like a handsome return, right? We are in the 12th year of our business. So we have to start thinking about some of these topics. Can we go public? Where should we go public? So these are the topics. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done. And, frankly, 100 million is, I would say, while it looks like a very important and meaningful number, it's a drop in the ocean. Some of the largest companies in the world now are breaching $3 trillion of market cap, right? So looking at those giants inspires us tremendously. Like, can we be a 10th of that, which would be huge?
Yeah.
Can we be a 100th of that? That again would be huge. So I think ambition-wise, like, we're still very, very ambitious, and like, how can we get there as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
Which means dominant market share, a public company, investors are very happy, employees are happy, and a product that kicks ass every single day.
Yeah. Now you picked up a good point. There are companies that are doing, trillions of dollars in revenue. Anand, do you think, when we'll talk about SaaS, a SaaS company from India can build a $1 billion in revenue business in the next few years? And if you do believe, why do you believe, and how that's going to be possible?
I think there are enterprise companies already doing $1 billion plus of revenue, right? Zoho comes into mind. I think Freshworks must be close to that number. I haven't tracked their latest earnings and all, but I think they should be pretty close to that number. So there are multiple examples of that, right? It's not like one or two examples. And I'm talking about modern SaaS companies, right? There must be traditional players who do a large amount of revenue. I think it's very much possible. We also compress the learning cycle, like I was telling you, when I moved back from the US 2006, internet connection was like a huge challenge, right? Finding people who would work in a startup. In a lot of cases, the parents would just say, no, we don't know who these two guys are. Like, hey, why would you leave your job at Infosys to go join them? Which makes complete sense. Like, I'm saying, I agree with your father. Like, why would you join us?
Yeah.
There's no job guarantee here. There's no provident fund and other good things that they will give you.
You're like, right? If I was your father, I would have been.
I would have done the same thing, right? So there are multiple things, like, that I think as every cycle, and our struggle to find product designers, product managers. We had project managers, right? Especially if you find people from service companies, right? Like, they're project managers and all. Getting that science into place, I think for every cycle I've seen has time compressed. Now we have so many startups. We have so many people who are great product designers, establishing global benchmarks. We have product managers. We have skilled AI engineers, right? Which makes the time it takes to go to like $1 billion. Before you go to $1 billion, you have to reach, like 10 million, 100 million, maybe $1 billion, or there is an intermediate milestone. You have to get to all those. But I think we've compressed the time it gets to get to each of the stages of this milestones.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember talking with Sahil of Ship Rocket.
Yep.
He said, I mean, there was no such thing as product managers in India. I was talking with Gaurav of 1MG. We didn't had product designers. Forget about data science, same of Healthy Pie founder. I mean, we've come a long, long way, and I think you picked a very interesting point. Like it goes through cycles, and every cycle just compresses. Plus, the ambition only goes higher.
Yeah, think
moving
of the
forward.
Silicon Valley. They went from manufacturing silicon, which they still do. There's some companies that do that, to software, to AI.
Yeah.
Now they have done this in an extremely short amount of time, right? Some of the people who invested in silicon chips are still around. So it happened within their lifetime. To go from, hey, can we use this sand to make chips, all the way to like, hey, can we predict the next thing that's going to happen in the world, like, through AI,
Yeah.
right? I think our cycles are a little slower for my happiness, but we are getting there.
Yeah.
My first product designer that we hired came from a print background. Print as in he was putting newspaper ads for builders, like full page ad, like for 3-bedroom apartments in Pune.
Yeah.
Right. So when we got him into software, the first thing was extremely heavy. I said, this is going to show up in the product dashboard.
Yeah.
You have to make it lightweight. You have to think of design and CSS and HTML, and it's like, what the hell is all this? So we had to go from there. Today we find like extremely good talent on the product side who can come in and who can hit the ground running like in literally 10 days or less.
Yeah. And Anand, do you think if you had stayed back in the US, the kind of impact you've created in India through CleverTap, would you have done that if you had stayed back in the US?
I think would have been very hard, and I'll tell you why. It's a very mature market. You would be company number, I don't know, like 1,500, like or even more, like in the enterprise space.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many of them. There's so many dead bodies in graveyards. Like I think for me the joy is in this market to be one of the pioneers. Like and the impact is meaningful. It's meaningful for me. It's meaningful for all the people who chose to ride along with us. Imagine like sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment and you are going telling someone how we are going to build a large business, and they're like, yaar, lag to nahi raha hai.
Yeah.
And you're like, ho jayega. Right? You're talking to an investor.
I think that's what the journey that you've seen. That's like gives you a lot of
That's the high,
happiness.
right? So
Yeah, that's the
I
high.
spent meaningful years in the US. I was there for about close to 7 years, like I think a few weeks shy of 7. Seen that journey, and I did make my impact. One in a startup and then 2 large companies like AT&T Wireless and Motorola, right? Now, would those companies have been around without me? For sure, like but the impact you can have in this part of the world to build a product culture, to build a tech culture, to to hire locally, etc., is just outsized. And I think I'm very happy. I would not change one thing if you were to ask me like, hey, what's one thing you could change? I would not change a thing. Yeah, of course, I'd want internet to be delivered a lot sooner or not worry about internet. You move into an apartment that already has everything wired up and ready. Ability to hire from a talent pool of people and all that. But what you don't have teaches you how to get to that. And those learnings have been extremely valuable.
Yeah. And Anand, look, cycles are compressing. Now, India has tremendous amount of talent. There's capital, there's knowledge, and ambitions are only increasing. Do you see are there any edges that Indians have over, let's say, the rest of the world, even Silicon Valley?
I think, for Indians who grew up in India, right? I mean, you can be an Indian like who grew up in different parts of the world also, right? Like Indian at heart kind of thing, right? We become extremely resilient, right? Like, sorry to use this cliche, but what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? So it's literally like that, like you don't get shocked or affected by a lot of things that are happening around you. And startups are all about that, like startups are like a daily multiple highs and daily multiple lows. The favorite engineer that you have in your team or the high performer wants to have like a 5-minute conversation with you on the side, like that your heart sinks, or your investor sends you something, or you like get an inbound interest from a large customer. So there are multiple highs, multiple lows every day, right? We become resilient. We are known for our, I'm not very happy with the word jugaad, like, and maybe it's now meant like a hacky solution, but I think we're very cost efficient. We don't throw dollars at the problem. We're not very good at solving this in the most efficient way or the most innovative way, but we are definitely good at solving it in the most efficient way, right? We are okay to take a beating or two, like, so the first thing that affects your startup doesn't kind of like, like I'm giving up kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
People want to, and some of the names that you mentioned, like Gaurav, etc., like, they've been at it multiple times, like, Gaurav is a dear friend.
Yeah.
And that's why I can speak, like, we are like that, like, and I think so that's what we do very well. There is only one other pocket in the world where this happens, which is the Silicon Valley. But I don't think so. It's a comparison between Silicon Valley and India. I think instead of one center of innovation for the world, they, like I said, went from chips to AI and internet and more phones.
Yeah.
What if there were two innovation centers in the world? Imagine the progress the world would make. So I don't see it as a competition. I see it as a co-option. Like, can we have two instead of one?
Yeah. And India will write its own story.
100%.
Eventually.
Yes. We don't have to mimic the Silicon Valley. We have to discover. And that's one of the things I learned when I was writing code for Burp, my previous startup. Like, in the US, everything is by zip code. Like, I'm looking for a restaurant in 94105 or, 94965. When I came here, so my entire Burp search engine was coded on a zip code. And then I realized in India, zip codes are there, but no one really uses them. We always have opposite this, behind that, near this mall. And I had to change that. Like, I had to adapt it for this geography. So there are a lot of solutions that will come out of this geography that are adapted for the local thing. For example, our finance stack. In fact, the identification stack.
Yeah.
Things like DigiYatra in India, like, man, this is a delight. We don't have it in any other part of the world, right? Some pockets of the world have it, like Singapore, etc., where you do facial recognition, or the payment stack that we have, right? UPI. So we have leapfrogged. I think even Silicon Valley, right? Do we want to leapfrog in AI, right? I'm not sure about that. Like, I think we will come up with our own innovative solutions. They will come up with their own, and we can exchange ideas and we can make it all work. Right?
Yeah. So look, to get an internet connection, it would take 8 months. There was no term as product manager or designer. Today things have changed dramatically. You can in fact open an internet connection within few hours. When you came back to today, big change. Things have become easier. What advice would you give to the ones who are, let's say, in Silicon Valley or abroad, thinking about India as an opportunity? Why do you think India is the best place to actually build?
So 3 or 4 points, and I will go one by one. Number one is, when you're sitting in the West, you have, or even if you come to India once a year for vacation to meet your family, that India is very different than when you land here and you try to start something up. It's not easy, but it's a very fulfilling and rewarding journey, right? So even if you come here to go work in a company or to start something on your own, both journeys are fulfilling and rewarding, right? So India, of what you read on Twitter and in articles, etc., is different than what is the ground realities, right? It's a lot harder, but even more beautiful. That's one. Two, there are so many problems that need solving at a national level, right? So there are so many opportunities. So the entrepreneurs, like, hearing this, it means opportunities, not problems, right? So come here and solve those at India scale, at 1.5 billion people.
Throw a few examples, Anand.
Infrastructure, right? Or AI, like, Indic AI, like, AI not meant for the Western world, but for Indian languages, right? Or skilling people, right? And there are multiple examples, like, we can go into that, right? So there are multiple problems that you can solve at an India level that will lift the entire country collectively, right? You can be an agent of change, and you can make it happen, right? In your own small little way. I'm not saying come and play at a national level. Maybe you're solving something domestically. Like I've met startups that are doing that are building drones for for farmers, or for disaster relief, or using drones for defense, right? Domestic startups, like not technology sourced from somewhere else, all indigenously built up. The third piece is it's going to be very fulfilling, like to come and to do it in a place which is already developed. Yeah, sure, it's success, but it's not like as fulfilling personally as to do it in a place which
where the odds are against you.
Yes, to me that's like a massive high. Like hey, despite the internet connection, despite or no lack of internet connection, let me say, ability to source people, no venture capital, etc. Like people still fondly remember me for my startup. Like I was at the retreat in Agra, and a lot of people recognized me, and they said, hey, we used Burp back in the days. So not bad. Like it's been like 17 years since I started it, and people still remember that. So to me, that's like an amazing high. So I think that's the kind of thing, like and come with an open mind. Don't come with don't come with preconceived notions, like like you would go to any other country in the world. Like you go with an open kind of heart and mind. It's a beautiful country. You can take breaks. You can go visit places. It's not as commercialized as some other parts of the world are. And it's going to be like a phenomenal and a very rewarding kind of move back to India.
Yeah. Was there a fourth point?
I can make a fourth point. I think for those moving back with families, some people just come in here, spend a few weeks, and then try out, and then they figure out, right? But those, like I moved back with my family, right? The kid will become more resilient also, like right? The schools are 10x better, like and I think from the family perspective also, you might be with your parents, and all those Indian social kind of things that bind you will be a good thing for pretty much everyone in your ecosystem.
Let me set the context for this question. So look, India has 120 unicorns, 23 tech companies that recently went public in the last 3-4 years. I think the largest market cap company is Zomato. At one point it was $30 billion. Now on the other side, I think 16 of Fortune 500 companies are led by Indian diasporas. 11% of unicorns are Indian immigrants. And not just that, I was digging deep into it. The CEO, CTO, CMO, CPO of Palo Alto Networks, Indians, Zoom, CPO, CTO, CSIO, it's just led by Indian diasporas.
Correct.
So they've scaled or they've helped scale companies go from, let's say, 10 billion to 100, even in trillions of dollars now. Now India will see that journey. Is there a path or a way for them to contribute to the Indian technology ecosystem? If so, how would that be? Like, in what ways can they help?
Yeah, see, some of the names that you mentioned, Palo Alto Networks or Zoom, they are extremely scaled companies. We don't have that here. We aspire to be like them, and they're of course all public also, right? So I think one of the things they can help Indian founders, Indian entrepreneurs, or the entire ecosystem is to be open to teaching how it is done. See, one of the things that we still struggle with is the depth of the talent. Can you find anyone here who's led a $150 million company, to IPO, right? There will be a handful of people. So that's a very narrow kind of talent pool, right? Can you find like a CTO who has 30 years of experience? Extremely narrow talent pool. So I think the depth of the talent pool in the US, especially in the Silicon Valley, right, is there, and they can become mentors to the Indian startup founders or C-level people in the tech ecosystem and help them on their journeys, right? Best thing is for them to move back, but it might be too much of a leap for at least that generation, that kind of age group, right? But even if they do that or don't do that, they can actually help out by sharing their journey.
Joining boards of companies in India,
I think that's a big way
Big way, yeah.
to influence.
And we've seen that. In fact, I think Gokul Rajaram joined Pine Labs. There's a guy named Sujit. I think he was CPO at Coinbase. Now he founded a company. He's on the board of Misho. So I think that's a very interesting way to kind of get involved.
Yes, and these threads will become better. Like,
better.
see, as the Indian startups kind of rise up.
Yeah.
Now, it will be hard to expect like a $10 billion company or a $20-50 billion company,
Yeah.
C-level to join like a early stage like board, because the advice, mostly the advice will not be compatible, right? So as the Indian startups kind of become bigger,
yeah.
it will be slightly better, like because they can then lead them, like or at least advise them on the next stage of the journey.
Yeah. Moving to the last section, Anand. Anand is looking good. Okay. Anand, what are you most obsessed about these days outside of work?
Still work, because there is no outside of work.
Yeah.
I think obsessed
hiking.
about, yeah, I think
know that.
My own health, like I'm obsessed about sleep. I'm obsessed not about just like one dimension, but food I eat, fitness overall. I oscillate between like spending weeks into a rhythm, like zone 2 cardio or running, walking, etc. And then sometimes I just go off the thing, and there'll be weeks when I do nothing, and then I have to get back on. So I have to be more disciplined about it. I think one of the things I am obsessed about is how to get more I'm not disciplined yet, like how to get more disciplined about how I do things, right? How do I allocate enough time between work and family, right? My younger one is 15 years old, like in a couple of years, like she'll fly out. My elder one is already flown out, like so how do I spend more time with the kids, make sure that they I'm a good parent to them, and so that's that, like and while navigating the challenges of a startup, how do we grow this, be more ambitious, and all that.
A misconception that you think people have about you?
That I went to a really good college and I must be very smart.
No, you are extremely smart.
I don't know about that.
Depends
It's a misconception.
It depends on.
I'm an extremely hardworking.
Not the book smart. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
If you could invite 3 guests over dinner, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
They would all be alive. There is a lot I learned by reading biographies, right? I've had the pleasure of meeting, so it's not 3, it could be 30 people, but I've had the pleasure of meeting some of them. But to me, I would invite like a Satya Nadella, I would invite an Elon Musk, and I would invite Tim Cook for 3 very different reasons. One is so we'll start with Satya. Satya is not a founder, but he had big shoes to fill, a large company to lead. And especially when the company was trying to find a CEO outside, like they engaged a search firm to find. They looked everywhere, and then they found like the jewel in their own company. I've met Satya. He's extremely sharp, very pleasant personality, and he's ably led Microsoft to the next generation of what needs to happen in Microsoft. Like he took a boring old company and transformed it completely. Extremely hard skill. Second guest for the dinner would be Elon Musk. I have absolutely no idea how he does what he does. Like across 5 or 7 companies he runs. He's active on Twitter. He I think he's like in beast mode, maybe, if you can use that word. Extremely obsessed about taking humanity forward across multiple initiatives, and somehow in his mind it all connects as singularity, like all of these things come together and we save humankind from going extinct by going to Mars and other places, like how does he do that is beyond my I've tried to figure out. I read both the biographies. I still can't piece it together. Third person is Tim Cook, and I'll tell you why Tim Cook. Tim Cook is an operations guy. There is like a lot of they make hardware primarily. They're known for their hardware, right? iPads and iPhones and Apple Watches and AirPods and all that, right? Each of these have multiple kind of parts in them. How do you make sure that all of these, the supply chain across all of these, and these are complex parts made by multiple suppliers. How do you get everything to kind of come together so that you can deliver a nice, good-looking piece of hardware to you? Is an operational. I am not an operations guy. So there's a lot to learn from him as well.
Love it, Anand. Thank you so much for spending some time with me on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Shiva, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and looking forward to being a subscriber and listening to a lot more interesting people on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.